there are a few good operas that have happy endings. And that's something that the modern musical and the modern TV show did not learn from the operas. But we think it's time to give people something light and to laugh about. And human beings are at our best when we laugh.
This is A Line Around Your Thoughts, a podcast that centers on conversations with artists, writers, musicians, and creatives from around the Inland Northwest. I am your slightly under the weather host, E.J. Iannone. My guest on this week's episode is Mike Bullard, president of the Inland Northwest Opera. It's no secret that the I&O, like many arts organizations, has had a tumultuous couple of years. But after going dark for a time in 2024, the I&O is back with its first main stage production since La Traviata in 2022. For that, they've chosen Johann Strauss's comic operetta Die Fledermaus, which is coming up on September 11th and 13th in North Idaho College's Schuler Auditorium. Mike recounts some of the ups and downs that were prelude to the return of Inland Northwest Opera, and he explains how they're going about things differently now. A little later, we get into some of the world-class talent involved in this post-hiatus production, and why this version of Die Fledermaus might be the sweet spot for longtime opera buffs, as well as first-time opera goers. Before we dive in, my thanks, as always, to Mel Antuna Hewitt for her ongoing support as a Patreon sponsor tier member. You can find her work online at librobook.com. And you, dear listener, can join Mel in helping to sustain this podcast. Find out more about the A Line Around Your Thoughts Patreon community at patreon.com/ALAYT. Then again, if Patreon isn't your thing, but you'd still like to become an episode or a season sponsor, look for the sponsorship and support opportunities on our website at alaytpodcast.com. Between episodes, you can also get updates and engage with us on Mastodon at alaytpodcast@pnw.zone, on Blue Sky at alayt.bsky.social, and Instagram at alayt_podcast. And now, on to the Rocart Media Studio. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
I am really pleased you're here because we have quite a bit to talk about with this upcoming production of Die Fledermaus. But also, I know that at least the last 4 years have been interesting ones, to say the least, for I&O.
Right.
So given that every interview kind of has a starting point, and it might be with the present day, it might be looking forward, with this, I feel like we have to rewind ever so slightly to about 4 years ago and kind of what's been happening with I&O, as it's kind of regained its footing. So from the story that I have, it's that around the pandemic, for organizations that were getting by but relied on a cadence, the pandemic upset that cadence and it put a lot of organizations into a bit of turmoil. Is that what happened with I&O?
Well, I think that would be part of it. There were a lot of other things, a myriad of small things that just happened to all come at once. And we got through the pandemic, but it was by hard work and, of course, some government grants, but basically a lot of hard work that got it together. And I think the organization was tired. And just things came together, and a lot of things happened. So we are moving forward, not looking back. Two of us that are on the board now were on the board then, and we just said opera is too great. We have a community that has wonderfully talented people. We have a community that loves good classical music, that loves good entertainment, that loves a good story. And we just felt like it was too much to let go. And we've gradually been working it back. And we're at the point where we've got a show on the stage, and we're awfully proud of that show.
Yeah, and I think to put this in context, this organization has been going not necessarily under the moniker Inland Northwest Opera, but this organization has been going since 2003
Yep.
and has survived a couple of rebrands from Opera Plus to Opera Coeur d'Alene, from Opera Coeur d'Alene to Inland Northwest Opera. And
You've got the history really well. Thank you.
well,
You've done your homework.
I've actually covered, Inland Northwest Opera in the past. I think I even covered back in 2017 with the more regional rebrand from Opera Coeur d'Alene to Inland Northwest Opera. And I've covered the opera truck, which was something that was, during Don Volsky's tenure.
Yes.
And so there is quite a long history here.
That was an amazing adaptation, not just of the truck, but of the whole idea to keep the program going during the COVID. There was a lot to make sure that things didn't fall. And Don has been just a driving force and a hard worker, and it was a very insightful time then.
Mm-hmm. And after she departed in 2022, I think there was some uncertainty about how the organization would continue. There wasn't necessarily an existential crisis. It was just, what form is it going to take? And
there were a lot of changes, of staff and of board members, and changing a lot of staff quickly is hard on an organization, especially at a time when it's already just recovered from COVID, and Dawn needed to take a rest and get back to her family, and we all respected and understood that. She had worked so hard, and things just the change didn't work well, but.
And it was in 2023, and I don't bring up names to necessarily impart blame. I bring up names just to kind of associate with the chronology, because I remember talking to Max Mendez, who had sung, I think, with Opera Plus. Like he had been back from the very beginning, and then he became general director or general manager around that time in 2023. And then, there was a lot of uncertainty, and I think in 2024, it was pretty much announced that the doors were closing for various reasons. What happened in that interim period between 2024, when it was like lights out, to 2025, when Inland Northwest Opera kind of came back and said, no, we want to make this work? Well,
two of us on the board stayed with it, and we brought on three younger adults that are insightful and hardworking, and we got together and started planning and working and trying to develop, beginning to redevelop a fan base, really redevelop our database, our mailing to get established, and gradually accumulating money. It's not something you can do in a year. I don't know how they did it back in the Opera Plus days. And by the way, I was there then.
Yeah. You have at least 2 decades with the organization now.
I have sung in every I have been on the stage in every main stage opera from Opera Plus to Opera Coeur d'Alene and INO, either as a chorus member, a comprimario, that's what we now officially call the spear carrier, or the short roll. The soldier says, "Hey, what's in the basket?" and she sings the aria. Anyway, a non-spoken part that was kind of invented because there was we did Orpheus and Eurydice.
And that was in 2022, wasn't it?
Yes, and that was we did that right on the tail of COVID, and we tested every member of the cast and every member of the orchestra every day of every rehearsal. And we got through it it was a scary time, and people were out on a limb, and it worked. And it came off well, and nobody got sick. But I was, we did that. Dan Miller had a really insightful way to pose that, not as the underworld of Greek mythology, but as the dreams and stupor of a grieving drunk sleeping off the loss of his companion and his lover. And it fit so well, but they had to open and close with a scene in the bar, and so they needed a bartender. I was the silent bartender because that's not written into the music. But it was a wonderful time, and there's been some great experiences. So yeah, I've been around.
Yeah, and that Gluck version of Orpheus and Eurydice, he kind of picks up at an interesting point in the story. So he chooses to begin that story at an interesting point in that tale, and so it doesn't begin at the beginning, or what we would necessarily consider the beginning. So it lends itself to that.
Yeah.
And I believe I said that was 2022, and I think that was actually 2021. And then 2022 was La Traviata.
Yeah.
And then this organization had been doing one main stage production per year, every year since 2003. And then
in a couple of years we did too.
Yeah, but then in 2023, I think, was it Don Giovanni?
Right.
That was supposed to go ahead, and then I think there was a reckoning there, and it ended up being canceled at the last minute.
Right. And that's hard on an organization. Opera is kind of a chicken and egg thing. You have to have the main stage in order to raise money. But the main stage costs money. And so you have to have money to put on a main stage. And if you keep that cycle going, then it works. But breaking that cycle, and you don't just start over very easily, because nobody's going to give money to you if you don't have a main stage.
Yeah.
But if you don't have money, you can't do a main stage. So canceling a show is really tough. That's why we have this show funded now, ahead of time. And we knew where the money was coming from, had it committed before we ever announced it. And we're not going to do another show until we're in that same position. And we'll take the money raised from this show as seed money to go forward. In this time of charitable giving is tough to get. Grants are tough to get. It's a tough market. You got to be really careful. And that's what we're doing now, something that you didn't really have to do before, but I think it's the smart thing to do now.
Yeah, and it's kind of lessons learned, and I think the pandemic was I mentioned a reckoning, and I think the pandemic was a reckoning for a lot of folks, and upset the balance. And so when I was talking about the cadence and being able to get by with the cadence, and when that cadence is interrupted, then there's
exactly
some hard questions to be asked. And then since actually, the opera cruises, when we talk about, these main stage productions, the opera cruises have been reliable revenue streams for INO for a while now, haven't they?
They were. Originally, it was our dependable fundraiser.
And this is out on Lake Coeur d'Alene.
Out on Lake Coeur d'Alene on the boats in the evening. And those were wonderful experiences. And those were always sold out, and always sold out ahead of time. People loved it. It was fun to be part of them. I was a part of a couple of the shows, one of which got rained out by lightning and hail, and the audience just sat there with hail coming down on their plates. And we finally had to go below because of the lightning. But it was amazing that we had to kind of herd the audience. We got to get off and finish the show without the piano underneath, because the piano shorted out in the rain.
Well, that's commitment right there. If they're willing to sit there through hail and lightning.
Yeah, you betcha. But the cruise ships got more expensive, and the food got more expensive, and the directors got more ambitious, and went from just what we call a park and bark, where somebody sang a few operas, a few arias, and so on, to kind of little stage shows, or unstaged shows, just concert version shows, to actual shows, and that became more and more expensive, and so it took more rehearsal and so on. The combination was that what had been a dependable fundraiser for many years became something that costs a good deal of money to run, and it was money out of our pocket in order to develop the donors that then would help fund the opera.
It's so interesting that this organization ends up becoming kind of a microcosm of these larger industry trends. And so the headwinds that I think arts organizations all over the place are facing, and have been facing since really the start of the pandemic, and I would even maybe go back to 2016.
Absolutely.
And so INO has kind of been facing not just one or two headwinds, but every headwind that you can possibly face.
For a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was once the board chair. That year, we were $20,000 short 2 weeks before opening night. And
what year was this?
Oh, it was the first year we did Carmen. So it goes back into the early
The early 2000s. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember. In 2007, I had peeked at the chronology, but
We had planned a concert version of Carmen, and we had it was the first time we had Sandra Peak Eddy, and we had Aaron Nicholson was our director, and it's very insightfully done. I thought even for a concert version, but we were $20,000 short 2 weeks before the production, and we were scared. And a week before the production, we were $10,000 short, and we opened with the money to pay the people. So there have been times that we've been close. So, like you said, it's the headwinds. Arts is not an easy business. It's not at all like a for-profit business. You have to depend on so many things at once.
Yeah, and when we look at regionally, I think of professional theater. I think of the pop and rock music scene and things like that. And it's not easy to get a professional organization and sustain a professional organization. We have a lot of extremely talented community theaters in the area. But when you're attempting to, pay folks in acting circles equity, or you're attempting to bring in top-tier opera talent, it becomes a lot more challenging, and that wider creative economy and that balance sheet becomes much more of a focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't think INO is alone in dealing with that. Which
Absolutely,
is a shame.
it's a challenge that's out there, and most of the really good organizations have gone through a time of reorganizing and starting over. Like a Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater that was so well established, and then for a while had its period that its future was really very unlikely. And Laura Little took over and started it back up again, and look where it's going now. It's going great guns. It's a big organization, and they do great productions and bring in good talent. So it's quite possible to build things from back, and sometimes you just have to do that, and it's tough.
Well, and speaking of building back, so there were the opera cruises that became, again, you maybe had to pay closer attention to that balance sheet and in order to make them pencil out. But there was also in 2025 kind of a return to more variety fare with Love Denied. And so I think this was autumn of 2025 when it was more of a selections of arias and that sort of thing, rather than a full-blown opera, which is a little easier to produce.
Well, I had done those, the small venue, but often it was the Park and Bark. And you sing whatever arias that your singers happen to already know, and you use usually the local talent. But with Love Denied, one of our board members has a love for the that aria, Lucia di Lammermoor, that opera. And we had a staff member at North Idaho College. I heard her and I said, "We've got a Lucia." Well, in order to do more than just...
And is this Chloe Sundet?
It's Chloe, Sundet. And she was great. Of course, she's moved. She was back for a summer theater production, I noticed, but I've forgotten where she went to. But anyway, I heard her and I said, "Hey, we have somebody that can do that." And sure enough, she agreed to do that. Well, we wanted to do more than just a few arias, kind of people do their own individual arias, and to show some of the interaction of opera.
Yeah.
So that we actually did the sextet from that and some of the music from that as a way to get the interaction, because opera is storytelling. More and more, it's storytelling and not just singing.
But it has a reputation in the popular imagination for being very static.
Right.
And so when you talk about interaction and maybe that dynamism, I think that might challenge certain preconceptions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I can understand why you'd want to focus on that.
Well, it started as storytelling. It was popular storytelling of the people before electronics, before movies. And so the average person went to an opera. I went to an opera in Rome once. It cost me $2, and I was in a nosebleed seats. And man, it was the ordinary people around me. Way down in the distance, you could see the people who came in their tuxedos. But it's a whole different thing. And it started more in that tradition of the common person hearing a story. And then as it developed through, and I don't know the history of it, but I know that there was a time that it was perceived in terms of how pretty is that voice and how powerful is that voice. And it becomes kind of a static thing. And so now opera singers call that park and bark, because if people have heard an aria sung at a recital, or someone at church sings something from an opera, and they think, well, I don't like that. It's like hearing a monologue taken from your favorite movie, but you take it away from the movie and just one person speaks the words, you lose the sense of the story. In opera, it's a whole picture of all the arts, of the visual arts, the scenery, the costumes, the instrumentalists, and the storyteller, the interactions among the people that make it opera. So, yeah, we wanted to do more than just, and with all of our programs, we did a Menotti program, and we did not a few fill-in arias from individual songs, but we had songs from several Menotti operas, and we actually did one of his little short, The Telephone, with two people. It was amazing. They did this thing how the telephone was getting in the way of their love life, and he wanted to propose to her, and the telephone kept ringing, and finally he had to just call her and propose over the telephone. And so we did it with cell phones, but it was written in 1949. The telephones were these old clunky things with a dial and a wire, and some people still had the cranky ones, the old box.
Yeah.
1949, he wrote this, and we sang it today and acted it with cell phones, and it was just as relevant and direct. And that's the story of the opera. And then the Consul is a story of a woman trying to leave a dangerous situation in her country and trying to get a visa so she can go into another country. She goes to the consul's office, and she gets met with papers, more papers and papers. This is a story that's lived today.
Yeah.
And he wrote it. I've forgotten when he wrote that, but it was just in the 1940s. And so it's the story and the interaction that makes opera what it really is. So you bring in the great voices, because the tradition of opera is to sing it without microphones, no electronics. There's nothing between you and that person's heart but natural air and lungs. And we think there's an integrity to that, an authenticity to that you miss with the wonderful microphone digital things, as good as they are. And so you bring in those good voices that can sing over an orchestra to a couple of thousand people, but still it's the story and the interaction. And so we bring people in. One of the fun things that I've always noticed, we don't rehearse for months at a time. No. We bring in people who've done these, the lead people have done these operas before, many times, it's often. And so we bring in people who have these roles in their quiver, these roles that they can do. But this is the first time they've done it together. So there is an all new interaction, and each director has a little different story. We only rehearse for 2 weeks.
No kidding. I thought the rehearsal periods were a lot longer than that.
Now the chorus, local people will meet a time or two to learn the music together and get ready, so that we're off the book and ready to go when we have and they work quickly. One opera we did, La Cenerentola, we had 5 rehearsals. Rehearsals. Yeah. And it came off and it worked. The contract is you know your part before you come in.
Yeah.
And you do the interaction, and the interaction is fresh, and you get into the story and you live that story, and there's a spontaneity that things happen that you didn't expect, and that's a good thing, because you learn to live with it and enjoy it and tie it in. Once Max Mendez was in the show, and he was it was the Barber of Seville, and he was paying the rabble musicians who were serenading someone, and he was paying us, the chorus. We were the rabble musicians, and with no warning, he dropped the money he dropped the purse, and the money goes rolling around on the stage. Well, that wasn't in the rehearsal, but what a rabble musician should do when there's money on the ground.
Well, they would scramble out
you
of the
dive,
set.
you stomp on people's fingers, you go all over the stage grabbing the money. But then in opera, you got to be across the stage in the right place at the right time for the right beat when it comes up afterwards. So you make it happen, and then you think, wow, we did that. And so you're in the moment with the characters. There's an excitement to it. Well, I love being just a little guy in the chorus. It's so much fun.
Well, I want to talk because you're going to be in Die Fledermaus. You're going to have a cameo.
Yeah.
You're going to have a cameo appearance. And then I want to talk about how you're bringing that interaction and maybe that sense of spontaneity to this production. But there's two things I want to wrap up.
Okay.
So one, Dan Wallace Miller, he was with INO for, I think, at least 2 years or maybe a year. And he did Orpheus and Eurydice. And I know that during that first period of uncertainty that some of that uncertainty impacted him. And there was a little acrimony there, I believe. And I just wondered, have things been patched over with some of the folks who had to deal with that fallout?
Opera is kind of like a family. If you have drama on stage, I guarantee you there will be drama backstage. Okay? One of our early operas, there was almost a fist fight in the green room.
Really? Yeah. So the drama is spilling off the stage.
Yeah. And at other times it is the most beautiful, loving relationship. And often one goes from one to the other. I could tell you, I loved working with Dan Miller. He is a gifted guy. When we get into the mechanics of things don't work and feelings ruffle and we've patched up as much as we can with everybody we can. Everybody involves a good person, and somehow we go forward and we say, it's family.
And with that in mind, what is different this time around? So after some of these trials and tribulations and a bit of the roller coaster that Opera Plus via Opera Coeur d'Alene into INO has endured over the years, what is different this time around with this iteration?
Well, currently we had some seed money from a good donor. And
do you want to give that donor a shout out, or do they prefer to remain anonymous?
I'd have to ask him first, but I think his goal is to get opera produced. He loves opera. He just loves to hear opera, and he's a fan of opera. And everywhere he goes, he wants to hear opera and talk about the operas and it's having that makes it possible for us to put this show on. Otherwise, we would be a few more years out because it takes time to build to break that. What did you call it? The rhythm,
the cadence,
but also that chicken egg thing that you got to have the main stage to get money. You got to have the money to get the main stage. So we're able to do the main stage, and now looking forward to building forward. But we're doing it, putting all of our donations on the stage. We're doing it as we have no executive staff. We have no paid bookkeeper. It's volunteers. Now we've hired the best show director we could get, and we're hiring the production manager and the best singers we could get, and the best orchestra we could. Coeur d'Alene Orchestra has come a long way. My wife plays in Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra. She's played there for 32 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
what instrument?
Violin.
Okay.
She's been in the second violin section for 32 years and been on the staff and on the board there. So only once, I think there was one she got to play. Usually she doesn't play for operas that I'm in, but I've forgotten where I was going.
Well, the original question is what is different this time around? And it sounds like you've got this opera fully funded or as fully funded as possible going into it.
The opera is fully funded. We have the money in the bank to make the budget that we've set for the show. And we wanted to do that ahead of time. That was our goal. And to do that by way of hard work. I love our board members. At this point now, we're one down, so we only have 4. And we're looking for a fifth. But we're actually, we want to develop the board, grow the board, to show people it's possible to do opera and to bring people on board. We're getting more donors, showing people that what can be done.
Yeah, so you've gone back to basics.
Absolutely. And
really just, as you mentioned, putting all your money on the stage to begin with, and then rebuilding that way.
Yeah. And it's a long haul. Let me tell you, it's a full-time job for
For a
a
volunteer.
board member, for a volunteer. And our volunteers work really hard, and we love them to pieces. So,
Well, you've managed to pull off a production, Indie Fledermaus, that's coming up.
yeah, and we are so proud of it. We have an amazing cast.
And just before we started, you had mentioned, by the way, this is a comedy. This is a comic
Absolutely.
opera. And that was a very intentional decision.
Absolutely.
So explain to me the rationale behind that.
Well, in a lot of arias, somebody dies. In fact, the majority, somebody dies, because our opera has this way of drawing out real deep human expressions, human feelings. And so these are intense stories. And that's a good thing. And people like to have that kind of a catharsis, and also an understanding the monsters of the human mind. Our opera is wonderful about that. However, we are living in a tough time. People are having a tough time with so many things, angry about this, angry about that, opposite feelings on this and that, whether it's, dare I say politics or all the other things that people are struggling with. We felt it was this time to start off with, there are a few good operas that have happy endings. And that's something that the modern musical and the modern TV show did not learn from the operas. But we think it's time to give people something light and to laugh about, something that everybody can come and laugh about. And human beings are at our best when we laugh.
And for the uninitiated,
Yeah.
now this has so many elements of farce in it.
Sure.
Can you give the setup
Sure.
of what this opera involves? And I mean, it really does parallel, a straight farce.
Yeah. Well, the story is a husband and a wife and a maid. Each sneak out. They have their alibi. They're going someplace. They don't want the others to know where they're going. But they're each going to a masquerade party, and it happens to be the same party. And so they all show up in disguise. What could go wrong there? And you throw into it that just before the party, the wife's old boyfriend has come around. And it actually starts with the husband is about to be arrested for has to go to jail for some little charge.
Yeah, it's convoluted. It's a
very
pretty convoluted setup.
It gets wound up. It gets wound up. But he sneaks off to the party instead of going to jail.
Yeah, he gets someone to stand in his stead while he buys himself some time.
Well, actually, the person who showed up by accident is the wife's ex-boyfriend, and he gets arrested instead of him. So then a wife decides she's going to go to the party, and then the maid decides she's not only going to go to the party, she's going to wear the boss's best dressed and to the party and go. So they each get there in a disguise, and that's the first scene. The second scene is at the party, and that's really the heart of the show. It's a party. Johann Strauss was the king of the waltz. And at the party, there's dancing, there's champagne. It's a wonderful, fun, frolicsome party with things going on. But here's this husband who gets there, and he thinks he's falling in love with this Hungarian princess, who actually is his wife in disguise. She realizes he is flirting with another woman, and she gets mad. She notices that her maid is wearing her dress, but she keeps her disguise on so that she can trap her husband, which she does by getting his watch. It gets really wound up.
And the champagne does some heavy lifting. The champagne becomes the scapegoat in a lot of this.
It does. And actually, the champagne is sort of a symbol of human beings not taking ourselves too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
We got to laugh a little bit at ourselves, laugh at what it is to be human. So, and the show has a strong theme of, the champagne. It's not just a rousing drinking song. It's kind of there's a certain elegance to it that says, hey, we need to not take ourselves too seriously. So it's a lot about the champagne. And then the last scene, where else but the local jail, where the husband, Eisenstein, discovers this man in jail for having been at his house.
Alfred,
yeah, was at his house. His wife's old boyfriend was at his house. So he disguises himself as a lawyer to interrogate his wife and this boyfriend, and they think that he's a lawyer trying to get him out, unwind him. And this thing gets so mixed up, and everybody is in so much trouble and so much hurt. And then, I can't say anymore, the magical denouement, the unwinding of the knot, where you just come to an understanding. It's a happy ending. I'll leave the rest from there. And it's an ending we should have seen coming, but it's a fun thing. That moment of untanglement is kind of something because of this opera, I've learned to see it now in the comedies and in so many things. There's a time of unentanglement. Of course, in mysteries, it's kind of a mystery stories. There's that moment where everybody used to gather around, and the
detective Poirot tells them exactly what they were doing at any given time and why they did it. Yeah.
This thing is a lot quicker and simpler than that, but it is. You will go away laughing and glad you went. Plus, it's all sung by some just majestic voices. I was writing the programs, and I can't believe the bios. These people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There are so many folks in this with very storied and highly respected careers. Before we talk about them, one thing that I do have in mind is you have maybe the very committed opera goer. Someone like your patron who says, I want to make sure that opera happens and that I'm surrounded by opera. Yeah. But you also have, in order for any organization, including Inland Northwest Opera, to sustain itself, you need to be bringing in new folks. Sure. So
it's not just to sustain ourselves as an organization. It's because we want to teach people. We want to grow the understanding of the art form.
Yeah.
And so, and the way you do that is by reaching to a younger generation each year. And so it's not just to keep ourselves going. You've got to have new people, but it's because this is something, and I hear young adults now, by young adults, hey, at my age, everybody's a young adult, but they tell me, opera? I've never been to an opera. That sounds fun. They never sat through those old recitals that their grandma made them listen to an opera song. Opera, what's that? And I'm hearing people that are interested but they don't know anything about it. We got to tell them about it. We got to get them there because it's an important part of life that human voices can do this. It's amazing what the human voice can do. There's an orchestra, and there's 1,000 people in that auditorium, and there's no microphone. And everybody hears, and that voice is present, and it's powerful. And it's because you learn the techniques of how to project.
Yeah. But with an opera like this, and I think of maybe lowering some of those barriers or the assumed barriers. And so someone might say, hey, I'm really interested in this, but that plot sounds a little hard to follow. Mm-hmm. And what if I go and they're singing in a foreign language? So tell me about how you're dealing with that with this production.
Well, we are singing the music in its original German. However, Inland Northwest Opera has always had, we call them super titles, up over the stage. There's a line projected, and it's the translation. And you can read the translation as they're singing in real time. And if you don't know what they're singing, it's amazing how much you see from the acting. Mm. If you've ever watched a foreign film and you see the super titles at the bottom, a lot of times you can tell just by their acting. Well, that's what you want to do in opera because you're telling the story and it's dynamic. But the music is there. Also, many operas, and this is an important point this is technically an operetta. And here's the difference.
Which means,
In an opera, you have in between the arias and the duets and the choruses and all the important music, you have these little lines that we call recit. Good evening. How are you this evening? I'm fine. And how are you? And they can run quite a bit of the time in this sung recit. And that's usually sung in the original language because it's very hard to translate a song into meaningfully and to fit with the syllables of a music form. However, an operetta, those lines are spoken. And so that has a little bit, and I'm not a music scholar. I love music and I followed it, but I understand that Vienna was important in the development of the operetta, which has the spoken part rather than the recit. And so this spoken part, we have purchased a new script by two guys in England that is hilarious. To do comedy, you got to have the right timing and so on, and translating that is just as important. And we're pretty pleased with the script, the English, and that part is going to be spoken in English. So you'll have the in-between parts of the story spoken in English. Think of a musical.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a close cousin of the musical.
Right. If you go to a musical, you hear a lot of things spoken, and then they sing. And frankly, I went to Broadway. I couldn't understand half the words. But, I know what the story's about. And there's the talking. And then when people sing, my old ears don't always pick up the words. But you know what it's about because the heart is in the music too. And so you will know the story all the way through. Of course, the story is published ahead of time in a synopsis in the program. But you're not going to be wondering what the story's about.
And you've got Stefan Gordon directing this.
Right.
Give me a little bit of Stefan's background.
Okay. We found Stefan down at University of Idaho, teaching voice and directing opera there in Moscow for the University of Idaho. And we looked at his resume in Europe, in Asia, and also in Vienna. He directed a show that ran a long, long time in Vienna. And so in Vienna, of course, is where the Fledermaus is set.
Right.
Originally, I meant to tell you back when we were talking about why we chose Fledermaus, our board members couldn't agree on something. Now, three of them had their hearts set on Mozart. Loved the sparkle of Mozart.
Yeah.
Well, our one board member just absolutely wanted to have nothing to do with Mozart. He doesn't like Mozart. So he likes bel canto and he likes the romantic and bel canto, a little later period. And they both had good reasons. I was thrilled that my board knew enough about opera to debate like that. I was, yes, but still we had to do something. Well, the Fledermaus is a little later than Mozart, of course, and it's in that romantic period, but it's still set in Vienna where Mozart was, and it has a lot of kind of the Mozart sparkle, and it has and it's a little later than the bel canto, I think, but it's in that romantic kind of niche. It had a little bit of both, and so let's see now, where was I going with that?
Well, no, you were talking about the appeal of this production, and then we had also kind of deviated down that route because we were talking about Stefan Gordon and his approach to this.
Well, he had a career singing as a baritone internationally, Europe, Asia, and the U.S., across the U.S., and then has directed across the country, and well established and knows this aria well. And he just was the likely one. Had he lived in Florida, he would have been a great choice for us. And he's right here in Moscow. Way to go.
And you get to showcase local talent
And
alongside, and so he'll be directing alongside Dan Pham and the Coeur d'Alene Symphony. So it's not the full symphony orchestra. I think you have select members from that. I saw Phil Baldwin is there on violin.
We've chosen 27. Most of them I recognize from the Coeur d'Alene Symphony. There's some others. We have to Stefan was taking another look at the pit because 27. My wife plays an orchestra. She said, "Can you get 27 in that orchestra pit?" But we're going to try. And they're all great folks. And like I said, the Coeur d'Alene Symphony has come a long way in the 32 years that we've known them. And Dan has directed Die Fledermaus before. So he's not just the conductor.
Has he? Okay.
He's not just the conductor. He's the musical director for the show. So he knows the music well, and he's a marvelous conductor. It's kind of interesting. I was looking at all the Doctor of Musical Arts that we have. We got Stefan and Dan. And Dan is, of course, on the faculty not far from Stefan over in Pullman. And so, and he's got an international career, well known in Asia, great accomplishments. So we're very pleased about the musical team that we brought together.
And your Adele, who is the maid,
Yeah,
that is another local superstar with international creds, and that is Madison Leonard.
absolutely. You say local, and people think, oh, that's a little lower class. Last summer, Madison was on the cover of Opera magazine published in London. Actually, I think it was the people in London bought it from the Metropolitan Opera. So that's a substantial magazine to be on the cover of. In December, she did sing with the Metropolitan Opera as Francesca in Carmen. And then I think she's got another role coming up with Metropolitan. But also then just recently, a couple of months ago, she got really rave reviews for a leading role in La Traviata at Garsington Festival in London. Amazing, powerful, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful voice. And she grew up in Coeur d'Alene. When she was in the 4th grade, she heard an opera that I was in, and she said, I want to take opera. And she grew up, she went to Hayden Meadows Elementary School in Canfield and to Coeur d'Alene High School. And she's one of our own, and she's made it big, big time. And we are thrilled to have her coming back with us.
And you talk about Inland Northwest Opera being a family.
Yeah.
And you were speaking figuratively, but that's also, there's a literal aspect to this because her husband is in the production as well.
Her husband is a Metropolitan Opera artist also. A German magazine called his voice beguiling. He's a baritone, beautiful baritone, and he plays Falk. He's his part kind of grows throughout this. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but it starts, Falk was the man that Eisenstein once played a trick on. He left him downtown in a bat costume, drunk, walking around downtown in a bat costume.
There's a lot of pranking in this.
There's a lot of pranking. And that, by the way, is where the title comes from, the bat. Die Fledermaus is the flying mouse. Some people hear the bat and think, oh, this is something scary. No, it's a flying mouse. It's a lot of fun. So we've got Madison and her husband, Shay Owens, both internationally known, wonderful couple, and some more family involved also.
And who's that?
Well, in order to put together a cast of the quality of Madison, I mean, you can't just have one great star. This show is really, the whole show, it's a big cast, and it's about the interaction of people at this party. And so you gotta bring quality, match. And we happen to have somebody with an international career right here in our region to sing Rosalinda, the wife. And she is...
and this is Michelle Lang.
I was going to tell you a little bit about her before.
Oh, sorry. I spoiled the surprise.
Let me build you up on this one because she has an international career and she has a doctor of musical arts also. She's an instructor as well. And her specialty is called belt singing. Now, I'm not a woman, and I don't know enough about voice to understand what belt singing is, but I know it is a technique that's used in opera and in musical theater and in pop music. And she teaches that. That's her specialty. And she teaches it at the University of Idaho in Moscow. And we would have gotten her anyway. It just happens that she is the wife of our director. So there's another family connection.
No kidding. Okay.
And we had to have somebody up on that level in order to match Madison. And the same way with the men. Now, I don't know all of them. I've written them out.
Your Eisenstein is Jonathan Bryan,
yes,
who's also got a career that has brought him certainly across the U.S.
Across the U.S., absolutely. Some region. I was looking. I know that Washington National Opera is in his, and I think Philadelphia Opera. Got a wonderful credentials, and we're just really, really pleased. Cody Luan, it's one of our folks.
Yeah, he's your Alfred.
Yeah. Let me think who else.
Yeah, and so you've got, just an incredible pool of talent here, and so many of them are from the area. So it ends up showcasing, you said local sometimes carries that stigma of being a lesser quality. Yeah. But what this does is it kind of showcases the level of talent that we have in this region.
Absolutely. Now, by region, that includes Portland and Seattle. They're not
Yeah.
too far away, and we got some folks from there. We had a audition that we published here, and we asked local people to come and sing, and we've used most of those people in this show. So it's really I am the least qualified. But I'm probably the most experienced, or not the most, but well experienced because of my chronological superiority. Some people call that age, but I'm amazed. All the shorter parts are important in the interaction because you want it to have integrity as a whole show to fit together. And you don't want somebody sticking out as lesser. And so all the parts are amazing. I'm seeing Lincoln Center, Kennedy Center, Metropolitan, Carnegie Hall, and these singers with amazing talents and other accomplishments and recordings outside of opera as well. And I think, yeah, it's going to be a fun group. When they all get together, there's so many of them that are educators, music educators. It's going to be fun to see what the action as they come together. And every singer has their own personality and their own way of doing things. And being kind of the little mouse in the wings on so many shows, it's been fun to see the different really good folks and how they each have their different disciplines and work together.
Well, I'm excited for this production, and I think there's a certain amount riding on this as well because it's INO saying, "Hey, we're back."
We're back.
And there is there's a little bit of pressure with this production too.
Absolutely.
So I have high hopes for it, and I'm sure you do too.
Yeah, we have priced our tickets from $20 to $250, and that $250 is higher than we've ever done. But we wanted to say to people, it's worth it. You pay that for a Gonzaga game. You pay that for something for some of these other things. This is worth it. This is high quality. This is not just some little local show. It's professional. At the same time, we wanted to keep it available. So a lot of the house is $20 tickets. And we have group rates too that people can get. So there's no reason not to come and hear their first opera. This one is, if you are an opera fan, you'll love the quality of the music we have. And I think what's going to happen on the stage, you're going to love it. If you've never been to an opera before and don't know anything about it, this is the one to come to because we've made it available with the English text, especially this new written translation for the English and the super titles. It's a fun one. So yeah, we want everybody to experience what opera really is. It's not that little old lady singing at the recital. Yeah, that's important. She's got a good voice, but or me, the little old man singing an aria sometimes. It's a whole interaction. It's a show, a theater, and we're very proud of it. Excited.
Well, on that elevator pitch,
Yeah.
I figure we'll close that, and then we move into to officially close the interview. We move into the lightning round, and that is 4 questions.
Okay.
And they always start off with an either or.
Huh.
So you have an interesting either or. Okay, it's a would you rather. Would you rather have a mullet or a perm?
Oh, a mullet.
You'd rather have a mullet than a perm.
I don't even know what either.
Oh, the mullet. The mullet is
it's
short in front, long in back.
Yeah.
And then obviously the perm is
as long as I keep my ponytail
So yeah, then I think you're a good
on
mullet
the side, that would be fine. That perm wouldn't be bad either, but I think I'm.
You're more of a mullet guy. Okay. When you are overwhelmed, this is the second question. When you are overwhelmed, what do you do? Do you have a method of relaxing?
Well, I love to fish and I love to hike and I love to sing. Got a great family, a great wife, a great home. Love to plant trees. I've planted a lot of trees in my yard.
So it sounds like you get out into nature somehow, whether it's the trees, the fish, and then you sing as well.
Well, I like to sing, yeah.
Out in the woods or?
Well, I'll sing out in the woods. Once I was hiking along in a place that had grizzlies and by myself, and I thought I should make some noise. And I let out caterwaul on some songs, and I thought, well, there's no bears here, so it works.
Did you have a pet growing up?
A pet?
A pet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you have many pets?
Well, we always had a dog.
Mm-hmm.
We sometimes had a cat, and sometimes had a parakeet. and sometimes all at the same time.
I was going to ask for your pet name or the name of your pet, but it sounds like you had several.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite among that bunch?
That'd be hard to say. The favorite's always the most recent one.
Okay. And what was the most recent? Was it bird, cat, or dog?
Was a dog. We had a dog for about 12 years. Wonderful Sheltie, named Molly, M-A-L-I.
M-A-L-I.
Somebody
the
gave
Sheltie. Okay.
Somebody gave her to us named Molly, M-O-L-L-Y, and we didn't want to confuse the dog with a different name, but we thought we wanted something a little bit more, so we changed it to M-A-L-I.
It's a little more exotic, yeah, while still keeping exactly the same pronunciation.
Yeah.
Excellent. And what endeared you to this dog in particular? Did they have a good personality?
Oh, yeah. She was smart and vivacious. And when we got her little puppy, she looked out the window and she saw my son, who was back from college at the time, kicking a soccer ball around the yard. And he left the soccer ball and left the yard. And she went out and she saw that she had seen him kicking that soccer ball. And she had that shepherd instinct. Said maybe that's what she was supposed to do. So she ran up to that ball and ran at it, and she stopped about 10 feet away, and it didn't move. And she backed up, and she ran again, it didn't move, and ran again, and she ran around it and barked at it and ran all day, worrying that ball, trying to chase it and hurt it and get into like a sheep. And that was when she was a little puppy, cutest thing I ever saw.
Excellent. And then finally, the opera that you feel as though gets the worst rap. And I'll let you interpret that as you see fit. But is there one that you feel, maybe comes under fire or gets neglected, and that can be, for any reason?
Well, I pick up on that, though, another concept, though. Often the person in the opera is someone who has come under fire and gotten a bad rep. And that's why I love, for instance, La Traviata. Sometimes operas tell a story of somebody that's gotten a bad rep for whatever reason, and then they turn out to be the hero. And so, that's one of the things I love in an opera.
That redemptive arc.
Yeah. Well,
Mike, I want to thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, thank you.
And talking about Die Fledermaus, and then also kind of giving us the distillation of the past 4 years of INO, and kind of talking about how you've, found your footing again. Yeah,
and remember that people go forward, and we all have those times when things don't work, and we don't look at that. We look at good people making things happen and just doing what we can do.
This has been A Line Around Your Thoughts. My name is E.J. Iannelli, and my guest this week was Mike Bullard of the Inland Northwest Opera. The INO's production of Die Fledermaus takes place on September 11th and 13th in North Idaho College's Schuler Auditorium. You can get tickets as well as more details at inland-nw-opera.com. As we close, a nod to our founding sponsor, Roquehart Media SPC, proudly rooted in Spokane and supporting our community with media that makes a difference. For more, visit roquehart.media. If you are interested in becoming an episode or even a season sponsor and keeping these conversations going, please reach out through our website at alaytpodcast.com. And to show your support for A Line Around Your Thoughts and even join the conversation yourself, become a part of our Patreon community. Check out our page at patreon.com/ALAYT. You can also get updates and engage with us on Mastodon at alaytpodcast@pnw.zone, on Blue Sky at alayt.bsky.social, and Instagram at alayt_podcast. Until next week.
Good evening. How are you this evening? I'm fine. And how are you?